Okay, so let's start.
Okay, hi, I'm Robin, as been said. I work at New Store for a month actually right now. And the talk I'm going to present is about Jest, and especially snapshot testing in Jest, which is a feature that was introduced a little bit over half a year ago. It's kind of recent then. And in my previous company, it helped us to do some really great things in almost no time. Especially test things that were not tested before. And that's what I will show you today, mostly, is how to include snapshot tests in a repository when you don't have tests, or you have only tests for something, partial tests. And then we can look at some let's say, tricks we can use in Jest and Jest snapshot testing. And of course, we will be talking about the newest Jest 19, which is 2 days old, so we can see what has happened. And the author said it's the biggest Jest release ever, which is, yeah, we will see what it means. So this is the Jest. They have a new site. It looks differently. Jest is a Facebook library. It's a framework for testing. Unit testing, as they say. The whole idea is that it should be batteries included framework. It means you install it, you run it, and it does something. It basically does what you want. You don't have to set it up difficultly. Just run it. I think it's like 2 years old project, but at the beginning, the biggest selling point was mocking. It was more about mocking. You could mock everything. You could mocking was default, by the way, and that was, as I said, a selling point. But after that, people realized that maybe that's not the way how you want to test things and to write mocks for everything. So even though Jest still can do mocks, it's not the main thing. Now the main thing is probably the snapshot testing, which is just behind the batteries.
Is the batteries part of the site?
Not yet. My pull request hasn't been purged, so no, not yet. But the batteries are inside Jest, definitely. I would say yes. So even though the scope changed, some things remained. Jest was always meant to be really fast from the beginning. Jest is based on Jasmine, and I'm not sure if you know Jasmine. But actually it uses Jasmine and just adds things up. So at the very low level it's still Jasmine, but it's much faster, it can do really nice things. Not that far ago it introduced multi-threaded tests or parallel tests, so the tests can run in parallel, improving the speed enormously, I would say. And the snapshot testing, as I said, is now really the thing. How it works is that you have a special measure, or you can have expect something to be or to equal, and we have these things like that. And Jest includes a new endpoint called to match snapshot. How it works? It works exactly as you think. It's taking pictures somehow. So you have an object which can be serialized, and that's it. You serialize the object in a certain way, and that's important. You save it to the repository, and then when you run it again, you do the same procedure, and then you can compare if these two images you created are or are not the same. So I think that I remember doing this with website testing, where you took a screenshot of the site, and then you took the screenshot again, and you compared image diff, what is different, right? And if it changed, it was wrong. But then it's difficult to say if it's correct or not. That's the problem with all these snapshot testings, because the computer cannot say if the change that happened is expected or not. We will see how Jest deals with that. And I would say another very famous thing of Jest is its watch mode. Right? It means it looks for changing for the files that has changed and runs all the tests that somehow are needed. And of course it's difficult to say which are these, but Jest can somehow do that. This is the wildcard camera wildlife camera trap. So whenever something moves in front of that, it will take a picture. And that's exactly what Jest does. It takes a picture, it compares that, and then it asks you, do I want this? Is this good, is it not good? And because you do this on a watch mode, the changes are incremental, are very small. You write a line, you save it, Jest runs, and asks you, oh, this line is new there. Did you expect that? You said yes. Or you say, oh, that is wrong. So you go back to the code, refactor, Just runs again, and now there are probably no changes or the further change. Yes, this is very different from TDD or BDD. This is the exact opposite of that. Because now, with taking pictures, you cannot start with like drawing the pictures at first and then expecting that the pictures will match, right? It's difficult and it doesn't make much sense. You do the other way around. By small steps, you change the picture. And because of small steps, you can always say, yes, this change is good. In the end, you will have a very complex picture. And you will kind of believe it works, or like because you said it works. And then it checks against any change that could happen. And that's been really useful for our component in React. Why is that so? In my previous company, we didn't test React components because testing React component is difficult. What you could do is you could use these React test utils or enzyme, whatever, and then you can check that I have one div, the div has this class name, it has this, I don't know, props, then it has inside the tree there's this link, the link has this target, and it has this whatever style, something like that. And it's really like difficult. First, you will never like test everything. You can't. There's too many things in a normal component. So you only test like the important things, and then you change something, and the whole thing somehow changes, and you don't see that because the test can't cover that. With snapshots, you kind of take picture of the DOM. Imagine going to the dev tools and taking picture of the whole tree. It's very similar to that, but it's text-based. So in my previous job, we believed that these components work as they should, because that was the only thing. We used them and they were working. With Jest, what we did is just took them to a photo session with a picture of all of them in a few different states, like no props, just basic props, some important thing changed in the props, and we had a lot of pictures. And now, anytime we change anything, we could compare what changed. So now, without like so little effort, we had like covered vast majority of problems that could appear. That I think is the biggest thing about Jest snapshots. It's super easy to start using it and conserve what you already have, and you believe it works. So, as I said, you need to take a picture of some object, of JavaScript object, you serialize it somehow, but then you probably can't take a picture of a component, and by component I mean the function creates the actual divs and things like that. What you want to do is you want to create a representation of the DOM tree, kind of. And I mean, that's what we do. We just kind of render that in memory, we serialize it, we make sure that it looks not like an object, but we make sure it looks like a DOM, so we render these angle brackets and everything. And now we can see how it works. The serialization is kind of smart, just uses some library which is pretty good, and does nice serialization of objects, arrays, some other native types. Then they introduced a plugin that transforms objects of the React to these JSX syntax. And of course you can extend that syntax with your own plugin, so you can serialize the object as you want. If that makes sense. Okay, it's a picture of me taking this code live coding. So please, I will be actually live coding. It's not pre-recorded or anything. So it can happen that maybe I will mistype something, and we will see if Jest will clean it up. Sorry. So can you see that? Is that big enough?
Yeah.
Both of that, okay. So the first thing I will show you is this very important package JSON. I have this is the only thing you need to have Jest in your project. You just install it as a dependency, and then on test you call it, and I call it with watch because I want the watch mode, obviously, and that's it. Now Jest will know what to do. What it does, it actually goes through the project and it looks for some special files, either for files ending .spec.js, .test.js, or you can put the test inside __test__ library, directory. Can I see that? It's actually, as I said, __. Yeah, I'll write it down. So you can create its directory. Yeah.
Do you have a configuration file where you can specify the test?
Yes, you can. In the package JSON, you can write a section called, I think, Jest, and you can set some configurations. But I don't think that's necessary many times. Most of the times, it just works out of the box. Batteries included. As you see, I include Babel Jest, which transforms my ECMAScript 6 things to ECMAScript 5, or I can use ECMAScript 6 syntax, and I don't have to care about that. Even the modules and everything. And it will automatically use it. If it sees I have this package, it will use it. But I can configure these. So yeah, as I said, there are two ways. You either recreate the structure of the components in a test folder, or you write the tests at the same level as the tests, as the modules. I like the second way, so that's why I use it here. This is a file called component.js. It's a very simple component, as you see. What it does, it creates 10 links. Each of them have just a number in it. On the right, in the terminal, you can see I run the test. There are some shortcuts what I can run. So I press A to run all the tests. It will go through them, and there's nothing because I set them to be skipped, so we can show how they proceed. This is the file. Do you have is it clear what it does? Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a test. Oh, one that is so short, isn't it? And that's it. This is the test file. The only thing that's kind of weird is that I have this React test renderer, but it's just the wrapper I told you about. I need somehow transform this creator of components, which we call React components, confusing naming, into the instance of that with the props maybe. So that's what I do here. I say render this component, if I have any props, anything, right? And then transform it to JSON. I look at the JSON and I expect the result to match snapshot. Right now there are no snapshots, so it will obviously run. I remove the skip and save the file. And as you see automatically on the right, just speed it up, and it says one snapshot written in one test suite. So it ran that, and it created a snapshot because it's the first time I run it. And now I have a directory called _snapshots__, where I have a file that represents the changes we did, or the snapshots we made. On the top you see that snapshot that just includes its header where it versions the snapshot engine, right? So you can change it later. And that's one of the new things that's been there for 2 days. So yeah, they finally included that. And then you see it basically just exports, name exports, right? And then this is a serialized result of the component. It's a div with 10 links, which have some basic things. What you can also see, and that's important to keep in mind, is that function is like not serialized. It's difficult to serialize a function in a, like say, consistent way. Even with the name, it is kind of difficult. So the name can change it many times. Some engines actually handle names differently. There were problems with, I think it was Jest 15. It tried to include the name of the function in it, but then different node versions did serialize the function differently, and it tests went well on your machine. Then you put it into CI, and it failed because it was a slightly different version of Node, and it's like very difficult to fix. So what I did is just they remove everything, and you only have functions. So you don't know this. In the snapshot, you don't see what happens on the click. That's a limitation of this. All right, so let's go to the file and let's see what happens. Sorry?
No, I'm just thinking, why can't you just plain text copy the function into it?
You mean like the body of the function?
Yeah.
But that could happen, I mean, that can come from any source. It can come from a library, it can come from a, I don't know, something can be anonymous. I mean,
Yeah, okay, and the function can have a function.
of course, yeah. And I mean, you don't want the test fail because you, I don't know, what would happen, like a library changed the way they name functions, or they wrapped it in an anonymous function for a reason. So, I mean, it is difficult.
It's okay, yeah, but
With Enzyme, you can kind of easily find the element, and you can see that the function you pass as a prop is the same that was passed to the other prop, so you can do that. But yeah, you have to write it manually. What about this line? Okay, so we as programmers probably want to start with 0, right? Let's not start with 1. So I will comment this line out, save it, and what happens? Oh, one snapshot has failed. How could this happen? Right, so I look at it and you see that what actually, ooh, that's not what I expected to happen. Oh, that's wrong. Okay. Oh, that's still wrong. What happened?
You fill the array with undefined.
Oh, of course. I wanted to remove different thing, right? I see that now. I shouldn't.
You can just
No. Difficult. That's so difficult, right? Yes, that's it, right? Oh, yes, that's it.
Frozen.
Sorry.
Something happens. False.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, no.
I'm connected.
Doesn't work, it's not where it's
Oh,
it's
no.
back.
Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
There was not just delay. I had it immediately. So what you see here, what happened is like this red thing disappeared and this green thing appeared. And of course that's because the rest didn't kind of change, right? That's what we did. I mean, we moved the whole array by 1, but from the picture perspective, we just removed one thing and added another one. And I see that. And here the Jest tells me what to do, right? So it says, like, you to update failing snapshots.
I think it froze the game. You scroll down.
Yeah, that's true.
The internet says the white stand's been a bit.
It's kind of, okay, now I switch this, oh, and I'm, yeah, okay.
Jetzt zum Glück ist er gar nicht erst ins Amerikanische rein.
Oh, okay.
Safe
aber
Word, genau, in der
nicht
Reihe.
nur amerikanisch.
Yeah,
Aber das ist außerhalb Deutschland.
Seems to be fine.
okay, it will be fine. So now I can like redo the changes I did. I mean, I can retry these changes as often as I want. And when I'm satisfied with this change I see here, right, kind of nicely written, I can press U. Oh yeah, it's good.
Then you can say, save the snapshot this new version.
And now the snapshot was changed. So when I actually come here, I think it's not, I mean, I think Atom has some problems because it saves the old version. But now when I go there, I see that it starts with 0 right here. And number 10 is not there anymore. So I updated this file that the picture is different. Yeah. And I mean, that can happen like with anything I change here that actually has some effect on how the thing is rendered, the Jest will pick it up. If I change something which doesn't make like any difference, right? So if I change a variable name on all locations, right, and I save it, there's no change.
So then you always save the snapshots in the repository.
Of course, yes. Good point. Yes. Kind of the
to compare.
yes. This file is kind of short, right? That just says what to do, but yeah, I need to include a big file that includes the differences or the desired output. Yeah, that needs to be part of the repository. It's part of the test files.
When you work with many changes and then you
No, I mean during the pull request, when you have a pull request, right? You need to review these files because they show you how the application will change for the end user, right? Of course, I mean if you will include a 1,000-line change, it can be demanding, and then you either believe that the change you did is alright and it will not break anything, or you should go through them line by line and see if these are the desired changes.
Are you sure that someone checks in the snapshots? I can make changes and ignore Jest.
Sure, you can. You can also change the test, as I said. I mean, nothing. Just write skip, and it will pass as well, right?
One more question. If Jest is putting a version into this file, what if I work with somebody in parallel? So
that's why I have it in the package JSON, right? So we use the same version of Jest on this project.
Yeah, but if we work on the same component in parallel, and I change some variable name, that changes the output, and he changes it, Jest will run, and then we need to commit it and merge it.
You will have a merge conflict probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think run it again and make that it works again.
Or that, yeah, of course. I mean, you can do that. You can. I mean,
that's also true.
I wouldn't recommend that, but of course you have the thing that you can like say. You can run Jest with -u, and it will like say, do not look at the snapshots I have right now, and regenerate all of them, right? You probably don't want to do that very often because it kind of just resets it, right? But still, you have something. You have some version what you would need to have. Okay, so it was a test of a component. As you see, it's very easy. Like any component can be tested. I mean, that's what we did for all of our components we had. We created this file. Here we included just the props we needed, which were like required, and we had tests, right? We had something. So I think that was incredible for us.
Can we just wait a second?
Yes. I already moved the screen, but then
weird with
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think 10:8. Do I need to reconnect or something?
You can try, yeah.
But now it feels.
But it feels good now, right?
Yeah, it feels good.
And it looks good.
Okay, that's good. What next can we do with these snapshot tests? As I said, you probably won't use snapshot tests for algorithms, right? Because when you have, like, I don't know, you want to do some calculations, some text calculations, you have numbers, and you want to compare with numbers. Then it's probably easier for you and you can write better messages when you write the numbers you expect. But then, this snapshot testing is useful if you have anything more complex, some generated objects, or reducers. A reducer is given a state, an action, and it returns new state. A state is probably a complex structure, so it makes sense to snapshot it and see if it's the same. And it should be, if the reducer are pure, then it should work, right? So that's another thing we did. I think it works with any complex object. You just somehow save it. Of course, again, if the object would be changing because there would be a timestamp or something like that, you would have to somehow handle that. But that's not a problem. We can see that. Code time. So I have here, reducer.js. This is a very simple reducer, but let's go through it. You have a state which has two properties, login and name. Also, as you see, I use immutable.js for handling the state, for saving the state in records. That's why I need to have this first line. This first line, if it's not instance of that record, it will recreate it. That way I can pass a simple object and work with it. So I can mock it, kind of. And it's also useful for the initial state. And then I have only one action, but the action does some logic, and it will change the name only if you are logged in, right? So if I'm not logged in, I cannot change the name. That's all it does, and we want to test it. Again, what I could do is I could write the test, let's say old style, and check it, right? I pass this, expect that the result doesn't have the name changed. But what if you introduce more properties here, right? I don't know, whatever, something. And now it changed it, but you didn't check it because you only checked for name. With a snapshot, we will be covered. This test is a little bit longer. So the very first test is I pass an empty action. I pass empty initial store. I expect it to create the initial store, which is basically written here, the default values, right? So I can remove the skip. I save the file. Just says run, and obviously it said one snapshot is written. There was none. It's green. We can look at it because it's kind of small. Here, yes, and I see that it serialized the object, kind of, simple way. That's cool. We want that, but maybe what we could do. No, that's not complicated. In the second example, what we do, we create an action, right? So we still pass undefined as initial state, but we pass an action. The action says change name to something, and as we see, the default logged in is true. That's a big trick. So it should actually go forward, right? So I save this. Nothing passes, kind of like, it's not passing as in it's correct. We need to check it first. So we go there and we see changes name when logged in, and it has the name changed. Also see that these, when I have multiple snapshots, they are ordered alphabetically, right? Which is sometimes weird because create is after changes, but I want it to be first, right? Oh, again, what Jest did think about that. In Jest 17, some time ago, they introduced that you can pass a parameter in here that will set the name of the test. So I can write here initial, or maybe I can write one, whatever I want as a string. I'll write initial, and then here I will write
Name updated.
updated, yeah.
Changed.
Updated with empty initial store. I mean, we could write better naming. I mean, you probably don't need that. I save it, and now Jest does something different, right? It doesn't say it passed. It says that he created new snapshots, which are these, right? He created them because they didn't exist. The only thing it knows about snapshot is its name, so he created new ones. But it says, but you have two snapshots that are not used, right? These previous ones, they are not used. Yeah.
Can you show the output with the new text?
I'm not sure I can because, oh, it actually can. Yeah, so now I have 4 snapshots in there. The old 2 ones, which is this one and this one, right? Yes. And I have these 2 new ones. It didn't destroy anything. Maybe I missed a typo. I wrote something here wrong, right? Maybe I did something else different, so it doesn't destroy it, but it warns me about that. What I can do is I can press U and I say the obsolete ones are not needed. They are obsolete. I rename them. So I press U, and it says 2 obsolete snapshots removed. When I go to the file back again, I have only the new ones, right? The same goes when I go back for some reason. Again, U, yes, I know that. I will go there, and the snapshots are as they should be. It wants like to be U to save.
You override the test naming with the snapshot, or so the first part of the test, the string is.
Oh yeah. That's a good question. I forgot to mention that. So if you don't pass anything, it will take these names as the names. If you have it in describes, it will concat the whole structure to one string, and that would be the name of the snapshot. It means if you introduce a new describe, like we will now.
Can I write the test with one parameter as only the callback function without a text string, or is it obligatory?
Like if you didn't have this at all.
Yes.
I think you can. Yeah.
Okay.
That's also the reason why it has this small 1 there. So that's the one. That's the number. That's the thing you cannot change. And if we name them the same, we can see that soon. It will still change the number, and the number then is like the order in the file. Okay, let's see that. Let's try these things. Okay, so I create a describe, and I will write it user reducer, right? I save it. I have one obsolete snapshot. That's weird, right? No, because this one has the name set, right? We set this name, so it overrides that, of course. Yeah. But okay. Okay, let's keep it that way. It's okay. I go there.
So it doesn't concat when the name is set?
Of course, yeah. If I set a name, the name is like global, or like not global, file global. Yeah, it makes sense. But what happens, because user reducer creates initial state, right? That's a nice string. What if I pasted this string here, because I can, I save it.
It's frozen again.
Pizza time. What's that the name?
It's okay. Now it's okay.
So maybe you just want to try to reconnect.
I think it's okay now.
So now it's okay again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. You see that now I have this initial state too, right? So it just to the order. It doesn't matter how it created the string because we had the 2 tests with the same name.
Yeah.
Okay, let's remove. I mean, let's keep the describe. Why not? And let's say everything is okay. Right. Cool. Then I have the third test, which basically does one thing different, and that is it passes the initial state differently. It passes logged in to false. What we expect this to happen is that the initial state will have logged in false, the user name, or the name will be null, then we pass the same action as here. I could have saved it as a variable, but I didn't because I don't know, I could have. And when I pass this, I kind of want it to be the same as this, but I don't say that. I don't say anything. I just say it should be as it was when I first run this. I see that I created one snapshot, so I have to look at it, and it's does not change name when not. Oh, sorry, when not logged in. Yes, that's it. Is it that? Yes, that's it. And I see the logged in is false, and the name hasn't changed. Cool. What I could do, and that's kind of often done, is that I could have a more match snapshots in a test, like this test suite. I could like do some changes, or like maybe do the initial one, see if it's the same, then apply the action, see if the result is as it used to be, then again maybe apply another action, and I mean I can do it many times. I can prepare these things. It depends on you. It will just create the snapshots with some name. Then of course you have problems because if you don't write a name here, it will depend on the order because the name will be the same, and that can be annoying. I saw that. But yeah, it works kind of well. Cool, so this is about the reducer. I think we tested what we wanted. Let's see what we have there next. Oh, that's too much next. Action creators. What about the synchronous action creators? So I hope that all of you work with or know Redux at certain level. No. That doesn't work. I mean, that's not a big problem. So, as you saw, I had these reducers and I passed an old state and an action. But the action, I need to create it somehow. It can be saved and it can be a constant, right? But more often I want to, like when I clicked on a button, I want to include which button I clicked on, right? Or, and that's more interesting, what if I clicked on a button and that means I need to do a request to ask for the data, send it somewhere, and then when the data comes in, I can somehow process this data I received. So, in Redux, there's this thing called Redux Thunk that instead of returning the action as an object, you can return a function which will receive some information and that will return the object. Just like putting a function in between. That's a very useful thing. What I have here is a small modification to that, which I like. It's this line. If you don't know that, it probably doesn't tell you much, but the difference is that at the top, you stop at this point and you have to go the whole round again. Whereas in the second example, you continue with the change data. That's important. That's a camera, right? It's a camera?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you know Redux, you need to, this is really cool. Okay, let's see how what that means. Maybe it will be better in this thing. So I have an action creator. So as you see, I ask to load user bookings. And instead of returning an object here, which would look like, I don't know, bookings is something, I do return a function that gets state and fetch. This way, so it's a dependency injection kind of, right? I have access to fetch, but I can mock it. And it will return a promise, that's the important part here, right? I return an object of this form, and here I have the promise. That makes it asynchronous. Right, but I want to test it, and as you see, I return a kind of a complex structure, so I can test that it returns the same thing all the time. Yeah, fetch, first, this is a dependency, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's window.fetch, but in this case, it could be because fetch does return a promise, global fetch. But yeah, it's a dependency here. So we need to mock this dependency, and then we need to check how the object return looks like. So as you see, this is a little bit longer because this is like a standard test we've written for action creators. What I do is that I save reference to this action here, so I don't have to write it over and over. And also what it means is when I would write a different action, many of these things I added up below will remain the same, and I just change the reference. I also mock the initial state, and then I mock the fetch. Here I can show you some other thing, and that's about mocking, as I told you, with Jest. Jest can mock things. Mocking means that instead of getting the actual thing, you give it something else, and which you control. So instead of observing, or actually making the request to the server, I just want to make sure that the function was called with the right parameters. Right? But of course it has to, so jest.fn creates a mock. So instead of going to the server, it will immediately return a resolved promise. But the good thing is I can see how often this was called, with what parameters, and other things. And what I do here is that I clear the mock so it doesn't depend on what other tests did. I will remove the skip. Now, save, and I see that now three specs were run. And it created 2 new snapshots. Let's go through them. The first thing I did always test is that if it's valid flux standard action. That's like some definition of the structure of the object, and it tests, it's like the normal unit test you would do. The second thing is more important, and it says that the result of this function, the object I return, is always the same. That's like what you would expect. But then in the third thing, I do something kind of, I would say, interesting, and that is I call the action, and now I check what happened with the dependency I passed, with the fetch. I can observe it, so I say, okay, I expect it to be called once, exactly once. I didn't call it twice or anything. And then I also know which parameters it was called with, and I can put these parameters as a snapshot, right? So then when I look at that, this is the thing, sorry, this one. Yes, that's it. So we called the function with parameter string Gregor / bookings. That's what, so that we know how we call that. If I went back to this definition, so this is this part, right? If I passed a second argument and set it for some reason to false, whatever that means, it still would be saved once, but now you see that the snapshot has changed, and I see that I added this second argument. So I have like this control over that. If for some reason I would call it twice, I don't know, right? Here I save it again, the whole test fails, and it kind of doesn't care about the snapshots. Why is that? Is that because we check for the snapshots? Yeah, cool. Only after we check that it has been called once, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to check it, right? Cool. Let's fix this. So it's not like it's not meant to be a replacement of unit testing. Definitely not. It's just a helpful thing not to check everything with everything, right? Imagine that you would have to check that you expect that the first argument is equal to the string. but then you don't check anything about the second argument, right? You would have to specifically write a line about that. You don't check anything, I don't know, you can check that the object you return has this property with this value. But again, it's very difficult, like if something happens to be there like, extra, right? Or if the structure somehow changes. It can be like difficult to see that. What I have here is that there's a very nice article about how to test React components. Okay, I can't do. Why is that? I don't know why is that. Now I probably need to copy that, right? I can't copy that.
Because it's in PDF.
But I have it here. Yes. And let's make it a little bit bigger, right? So there's a very nice article. I hope it's linked somewhere. No, it's not. That's stupid. I will add the link to the article. And this guy created a kind of simple application with some components, and he created, I will show you in my way, this lock screen, which is some, I don't know, some component which includes other components, and then he created tests for it, how he thinks it looks best. And that's this lock screen.test. That's what the guy included. And you see that he like does a lot of things, and here, for example, he checks that something receives this thing in the props, and it's equal, like a string equal, right? That's what, I mean, and then he does it, I don't know, like for other thing here that something that's undefined. What I did is that I took the same component and created the Jest test with Jest snapshot testing. It was Jest before, I mean snapshot testing. And it looks like this, right? What I do here is that I have two tests. One test renders it without any props passed. And the second test renders with some props passed. So this is much easier to see what happens. Of course, there are two drawbacks, or like not drawbacks, there are two things that are connected with this. First is, this file also generated a snapshot, which is long, right? But it's not something we have to write, we can just look at it and we see something happens. The second drawback is that there are still things I cannot check with this. What I mean by that is exactly what I told you about, this function. This function is probably passed to the component. And what the guy does in the test is that he looks if they are the same. If the function that was passed to me is then for like without change passed to this div. I can't say that everything's function for me, but nothing like it's not nothing easier than just copy the line he has, or maybe the 3 lines he has, and put it in my test files and test these. So the snapshot testing doesn't solve everything, but makes it very easy. You don't have to check if something is undefined because you just see these things, right? You see what is the style here, for example. Because if you decided to write the styles in your JavaScript, then you probably want to check that they are the same. So I have that. Here you also see that the rendered tree is kind of big, right? It has like, I don't know, many things inside it. That's because the original lock screen here includes other components, like this one, which may also include other components. And we use this library called a test renderer. The test renderer will render the whole tree, like it was in the DOM. What that means that if I change something in the inside component, a test for the outer component will fail, which is not something we probably want. But right now it works like that. It's better safe than sorry. So now you are pretty safe. You can use Enzyme and shallow rendering. I'm not super sure how that's serialized. I think there was a problem with that, but people are working on that. So instead of seeing this div, you would see the component you rendered with the props you passed. So making this like less depending on the actual implementation of the subcomponent. And the other thing I see other people working on, there's a project called Unexpected React, yes, which is, I don't know if you know that, it's also testing, and it's matching against like a template. So what it just does is that it creates you a snapshot of everything is there. The Unexpected React does just that you write or change the snapshot into a template. And you say, for example, you include style and you can say it's an object, but you don't care what it is, right? Or you can say, I want that to be, I don't know, something, the top overlay, and it's, I don't care what are inside it. We can like somehow make the big snapshot smaller by removing the parts you don't care about. Yeah, and they also like want to do this. Like, I know this guy who writes that actually is from Hamburg, and we've been talking about that, and he's working on something very exciting. So you would have like a snapshot where you could say, I don't care about these things, which sometimes you don't, and it would do this shallow rendering, meaning the subcomponents would not change the whole snapshot, how it would look. It would not be included in that. So that would be really cool. That's not done yet, but I think it's a very interesting development, and we'd like to see how it pays out. Yeah, these are the two files compared. But as I said, it's not one-on-one. This one doesn't test something, and this one doesn't test something either, right? I think it's like they are, how is the word for that? They are disjoint with common. No, how is that?
It's well,
I know this word in Czech, I forgot it in English. It's like XOR, right? With joins.
yeah.
So they are not included.
Say it in Czech.
No. I was just showing, right? So you have these. This is the common area, and these are not unempty. I will look at that. I will Google that and write somewhere about that.
Diese beiden Tests haben ein paar Gemeinsamkeiten, aber die gehen nach.
So I mean, actually, this common part they test is kind of big, I would say, but each of them includes something else, and maybe they can borrow that from each other. So if you have a union of them, you will test so much more.
One part is Jest and the other part is.
I mean, just this is snapshot testing, and this is without snapshot testing. It's called Enzyme. It's called Enzyme and Snapshot.
Okay.
That's a catchphrase, and it has some reservation, but let's call it like that. You either compare by strings or like references, so that's good. You compare references or you compare snapshots.
Yeah, but you can do both. I mean,
Exactly, because it all runs in Jest.
Unit testing, and you can whatever.
Exactly.
You can use Karma next to Jest, next to Enzyme.
I forgot that's a good one. That's good you mentioned Karma. So I think that Jest can do anything Karma or any other these frameworks can, and Jest is incredibly fast. I think it's even faster than Ava, and that's something. But they included this snapshot feature, and I think they want to make it as a module, so the other frameworks can utilize the snapshots thingy.
Ava now includes snapshot testing as well.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Ava.
And I think they actually use the one that's from Jest, right? Yeah. Cool. So that's the thing I also like about Jest and Facebook is they're very honest about it, and they're very open. They don't like say, oh, we have snapshots, we created them, we tied them to our library. No, they just want everybody to use what is the best. They want to use the best, and they strive for that. I find very sympathetic.
But they have to, because I mean, React is their baby, and
That's true.
For
I
them
mean,
it's
but
already beneficial to have snapshot testing.
yes, yes.
But that they make it public, that's good.
That's true. I mean, that's true. That's a good point. Some people, I mean, you very often will see snapshot testing and React components. The first example I showed. What I wanted to show is that it's not limited to this use. And if you are being in this like snapshot mood or like snapshot mindset, you can see these use cases in much more wider areas, right? And I'm not saying it's like the golden bullet will save it. It's just at some certain points, it makes sense to just see how the result looks like. And again, as I said at the very beginning, it's exact opposite of TDD. But you can combine these. You can write this in TDD and this in the snapshot testing. The snapshot is about conserving. That's its takeaway. I conserve and I seek for changes. And Jest will tell me there's a change. It doesn't judge. It just observes. This is my Twitter handle. If you want to follow me, I sometimes do tweet about these things, and sometimes I do some rants about technologies I don't like. And the picture, I actually had a project, it was called 100 Abandoned Bikes, and every day, for 100 days, I took a picture of an abandoned bike in Berlin, mostly Berlin. It was kind of easy though. So on my Twitter you can find 100 abandoned bikes. A lot of people who've been like my friends, been asking me what's with the bikes. So it will take some time until I have to have a new project, so I'm not the old abandoned bikes guy. Thanks.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
Thank you.
So now if we have questions, we can go through them. We still have like, I don't know.
Enough time.
Yeah, exactly. So 4 hours to midnight,
So I've been wondering, so we are using like Jest for everything, like for strings, objects, and everything that can be serialized. So I just came up with the question if it's a good idea to actually do that or not. Because you can, if you just do that just too much, you can just come up with too many snapshots, and it will be hard to review.
Too many snapshots, I see. So, as I said, I think it's a good accompanying what you have. So if you include that, and the functions you have are pure, in a certain way, you can mock them. So, I mean, I have to admit something. I had to change the guy's code because he was calling directly date.now, right? And the snapshot was different every time, so I kind of removed it. And if I were write that, I would have to move it to some I don't know, to the state, which I can mock. I can pass it as a props. So true, sometimes you can't use that. But then I could do the thing that I have the tree, I have the JSON. So I can render the thing, I can create a JSON, I can change the JSON. So I say remove this line, and then create a snapshot. So yes, sometimes you have to think, and you can have a lot of snapshots, but I still feel as like a conserving what I have, somehow making sure that things doesn't change. And if they change, I approve the change. I'm not sure if that answers the question. Like, I still think that if you include them, not everywhere, but very like some nice, like I don't know, like once in a, I don't know how to say that. Like you just check it if it's the same, if nothing has been added, because that's the thing nobody checks. Like you can usually check that it has this, but you don't check it doesn't have that, unless it's really something you don't want that.
Yeah.
This makes it kind of easy.
I think especially in a code base where you work with loads of other people and maybe one of your changes affects somebody else down the line. And I think that's where snapshot testing is really powerful as well, because you can really easily then see what you changed without actually knowing every detail of the other unit tests.
And then one more thing, which was our case before, is that we didn't have tests. If you have like your code base covered, then yeah, you can sometimes see, okay, I can use Jest here and make it shorter, but you generally wouldn't need to do that like that often. For us, it was like a super fast way how to have like go from nothing to 73%.
Was that
I think that number is made up by you.
No, that's actually official statistics.
Is there a way to generate snapshots without touching the file as initial state?
So in the Jest itself, I don't think so. I think it kind of assumes that you have Git as well. So it changes the file, and you either do or do not commit that change, right? So as we saw, like even like when I had these two tests and I renamed them, in one point I had like 4 tests in the file, right? I'm not sure you can like prevent that. So only after I approve that change in the console, it would write it. That's what you want, right? Kind of.
To have to define a test and make a snapshot and then save it as initial state. So for one command line tool to set up.
I mean, I'm nothing like. It depends how you serialize the state. That's like the problem, right? With the serialization.
I think
Yeah, with this problem.
I think what you mean is that this is exactly what Jest does. I think Jest just does that, what you were asking. The first time you run it, it just does it.
Yeah. That's, I mean, because I'm not sure if you remember, like I had like the snapshot folder completely empty, and I had the skips on the test. So when I remove the skip, it now like saw, oh, there's a new test. It will look, do I already have this test? It says, no, I don't have it. So it will write it, and it's automatically green because it cannot compare it to anything. So at the very beginning, when you rename things, it will do this, right? But that's why it also warns you that there's something, how we call it, obsolete. So there are like tests that you don't test anything against. So you have to like see, oh, I renamed tests. Has they changed? But because you have this really nice watch mode, and that's, I mean, I kind of recommend to use this. Otherwise, if there are a lot of changes, then you would run Jest, and you have a really big difference between those snapshots, and it's difficult to say if they are actually correct, if you didn't miss anything. With this watch mode, you can see the changes gradually growing, and you can like understand the small change you made, but not the whole bunch of changes you made throughout the day.
When I have a test and then I write something, save, and then he asks me if I want to apply this or revert this, and then I get to the file and change another thing. Then he will discard the discard the last and makes a new.
Imagine
Does he have more versions? 2, 3, 4?
No. It always has like what was there before and what is there now, right? And what you can do is that say you did something wrong and you didn't expect any change, but something happened and you have a change. So then you don't say, I approve it, obviously, because you don't approve that change. You will go back to your code base, make the changes that need to be changed, and in the end you have no errors, no differences, right? And nothing is boiled.
If you don't want.
Exactly. I mean, that was the thing. Like, if there are changes I don't want, I see that there are changes. I go there, I fix it, I save it again. I don't have any changes.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the snapshots. So yeah.
But it's pretty fast done.
Yes.
I think to write like I need to test like really a lot.
Yeah.
I mean you can basically every object you can put to JSON.
That's questionable. You know, as I said, like because it's very difficult to serialize functions.
Yeah.
It's not always true that you can like serialize.
But objects.
Yes.
I mean, like,
if you have simple objects, that's like I would say no-brainer. That's like really cool.
user with
Arrays
and
and
a
things.
string and some numbers.
Also, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I have immutable JS objects, right? But the serializer know how to handle them, and instead of writing, I'm not sure you know, they have like different structures. Like they knew how to represent it in a way that's repeatable and still valuable. You can write your own plugins for the serializer. So if you know that you will have some kind of objects and you want to represent them a certain way, you can. They did this with the React components. They write them so they appear as a DOM element, right? You can do that with anything you want. You have access to the syntax tree.
JavaScript.
Yeah.
For Angular, is there a plugin too? Because Angular has the hash keys on the DOM elements when you grab it over JavaScript and every time they change.
I honestly don't know about anything about that. It's but I mean technically there could be, but I don't know about that. Someone would have to write this serializer. This serialization function.
Doesn't Angular use Karma? Isn't that there?
Karma on protractor and so
Oh,
on. And protractor for F2E and Karma for init.
Hello.
Okay, do you have any questions?
It's right. That's why should we
Okay.
So yeah, thanks for these insights. It was pretty helpful.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna end this
Now
right
we'll
now.
talk about the